Welcome to Chef Randy at the Cutting Edge. Today we're going to be doing something kind of cool, short ribs. Everybody takes it for granted that the cheaper meats that are out there, like short ribs or whichever, the ones that take a little bit longer to cook because they're intimidated by it, it's light prep. Takes a little bit longer to cook, but it's doing all the work so you can enjoy a beer or a glass of wine while you're waiting. But we're going to go over the steps for making short ribs. And it's very simple ingredients. It doesn't have to be perfect on the ingredients because you get a lot of flavoring out of these items anyway. So like something simple as a simple mirepoix of carrots, celery, onion. I add a little bit of thyme, some mushroom, some shallots. Shallots is kind of like that hybrid of garlic and an onion mixture. It gives it nice flavoring. Another thing as well is that sometimes whenever people are done cooking short ribs, they go ahead and they take it right out of the liquid that they just cooked for 3 hours or 2.5 hours, depending on how long you're doing it, how big the pieces are. But then they pull it out of the liquid right away. So if I'm doing something for like the day before and I don't want my family waiting on this, I leave it in the liquid. I let it sit overnight. It absorbs all the flavoring, and you're going to see a big difference. Same thing with like pork belly. Pork belly is the same thing. So that's the way I do it. So the other deal too is like you have the carrot. There's a lot of flavoring in the carrot, and when the cool down procedure, if you ever learn how to make an au jus or something, which we'll probably do sometime in the future, but you cut it at an angle, and when you cut it at an angle and you cut it at like a 1/4 inch, right? Whenever it starts to cool down, you actually get a lot more flavoring once it's cooled down. It sucks all the flavoring out while it's cooling down. So, and it's the same thing with the carrots. The same thing with carrots, same thing with everything else. But that's why you let it sit down and you cool after everything is being cooked. All right, now that the vegetables are out of the way, we're going to talk about the good stuff. Look at this, right? Everybody, I've done it before where you cook like the A5 strip on the video or anything like that, and you see all this wonderful marbling, and people are like, oh my God, that's too much fat, there's too much this, too much that. That's all your flavor. That's what this is. And you're going to be cooking this bad boy for about 3.5 hours. I mean, I usually do about 2.5, 3 hours, depending on the size. So we are going to cut these down. But all this marbling and everything is going to melt down into the meat and spread flavor. And that's what you want. So we're going to cut these into cubes, make it a little bit easier. Usually what I do is I kind of like put it on top of like mashed potatoes or something like that. But this is a little bit fatty right here, so I'll probably just trim this off. I'll use this for scraps for something later on, maybe tacos or whatever, I don't know. We're just going to cut these nice sizes. They'll shrink down when we cook them too. I do want a little bit of a uniform look. Now we're just going to get a simple seasoning. I'm going to use sea salt, cafe ground black pepper. Right? So let's kind of spread these out a little bit. You do want to take a towel, kind of dampen it off a little bit, make it nice and dry. You're up 6 inches away from the meat so it spreads, doesn't do tiger stripes or anything like that, so you get a full coverage. So after flipping it over, let's go ahead and dry a little bit more. You're just drying it to get the moisture off so that the seasoning's actually sticking in here and then the flour's not absorbing too much. Again, 6 inches above. Full coverage. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start dredging in flour. And dredging in flour, what it does, kind of makes it so that whenever you're pan searing these, can thicken up the sauce, whatever you're making after searing them, because you want to deglaze the pan. And it also kind of protects the outside of the meat a little bit because it's not going to be fully submerged. It's actually just going to be lightly submerged in the pan. But you want to get all the sides. We'll sear all the sides. It's going to look for like a golden sear afterwards. All right, mix this flour off a little bit. Now let's go over there and sear these bad boys. So now we're going to get a nice little sear on these. So just a little bit of canola oil, that's it. I'm going to put some in here. See if this is hot enough. Take a little bit of flour. Let's give this a little bit longer heating up. We're gonna go ahead and put a couple pieces in here and there. There we go, got a nice little And like I said, just like about 30 seconds to a minute on each side. You're just getting it golden brown. We're not cooking it right now. We're just getting a nice golden sear. Kind of lock in all the juices into the meat. So whenever it's actually cooking with all the vegetables and the mirepoix and the mushrooms and the shallots and the thyme, it all just really gives great flavor. Another thing when you're cooking meat and you're trying to make that nice sear, you don't want to flip it too early, because it's almost like when you're cooking, the meat will come off the pan itself. If not, then it will stick. You're going to lose the seasoning onto the pan, etc. So just kind of let it get its sear. You can actually tell when you're on the bottom of the corner, almost like a fish where it starts rising in white, you'll start to see that coloring. And see how it just moved easy? Let's see what kind of, there we go. Beautiful golden sear. Let's give it another minute. Then we'll sear the sides just a little bit, and then we'll put it in our pan over here. A little sear on our sides here. You can already smell some of that fat melting down. Very nice. So let's go ahead and go with our next couple pieces. And when you're putting this down, put it down like this. If you could tell the liquid splashes up towards the other way so you don't burn yourself, that's another great thing. Try to get all these pieces in here. And the pan kind of gets hotter as it's sitting too, so it's not like it's a sous vide where it's going to stay at that one temp. So just kind of make sure that you're not letting it get too much. It's going to take a little bit less time. See, that's a beautiful sear, and it was probably about 20 seconds less than what we were doing on the other. Well, nice, beautiful golden sear on these things. Give it another minute, and then we'll sear the sides. And you want to find a pan afterwards when you're going to put it in the oven. That kind of makes it so it's one layer. You don't want them over the other pieces. Pan obviously is getting a little hot. So what we're going to do now is, if you see all this, that's going to be flavoring. That's going to be fat from the short ribs melting down in the pan. You want to keep that. So what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of shallot and some garlic and some thyme and the onion. So let's do the onion. I want to kind of cook these down a little bit, get them translucent. Get some nice coloring on this. What we'll do is we'll add some of the carrot. Like I said, this doesn't have to be a precise measurement. Use like 5-6 carrots, like half a pound to a pound, depending on how much of this you're cooking. Same thing with the celery ratio, about half an ounce to an ounce of thyme. And then garlic, I use like 4 or 5 cloves, 1 shallot. It's not baking a cake. It doesn't got to be completely perfect, but you're going to get a lot of flavoring from out of here. And mix everything around. cook this down just a little bit as well. So after we're going ahead, saute these up a little bit. I have my beef base over here, and what I do is I bring this up to a light simmer because you want it to be nice and hot. You don't want it to be cold when you're pouring over the product, so it has to get back up to temperature in the oven. You want it to be ready to go. And you get a lot more flavor, kind of melting down the beef base itself. And I use a roasted beef base. Adds a little bit more flavor. Add a little bit of aromatics. We're going to go ahead with our shallots and our garlic. And our thyme. Throw these mushrooms in. Mix everything nice up. We're going to let that cook for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. So just like anything else, cooking should be fun. You should enjoy yourself. This is why you do this at home. This is what you get, the flavors from everything and the smells of everything, and you want your wine to kind of open up anyway, right? So whenever you're getting ready for dinner, or if you're doing beer with short ribs or burgers, whatever you're doing, I don't care what you're doing, but always have something. Do a little glass of wine, do a beer, relax a little bit, have fun with it. And like I said, we're going to cook with this, not just drink it. I'm just going to add a cup to this. You let the wine sit in there for a little bit of time. Then if you're working on a fire, you can kind of go over to the side a little bit. It'll catch a flame, or you can do it with a lighter and catch a flame and burn it off. What you're going to do is we're just going to let this cook in the carrots and the celery and the mushrooms and the shallots and the garlic a little bit. Kind of let it reduce a little bit. Reduce by about half. You're going to get like a little bit of a thicker sauce to it. So after cooking this down just a little bit, you can see the nice coloration with the wine getting infused with all the vegetables, and kind of about almost halfway done with the liquids for coming out. That smells awesome. Trying to mess with him right now, holding the camera. So we're gonna go ahead and add this. You're just gonna pour it right over. And this is a lot too, so this is probably did overboard, but you know what? You can never have enough flavoring. Why not? Like I said, you don't have to fully submerge it. I still see some of the tops in there, you know, so that's enough. You have a little bit of flavor of it being kind of like a pot roast, but you do have your wines, you have your aromatics, or your thyme, and also your garlic that's going to infuse in there. And afterwards, you can make a sauce out of pretty much anything. Either you can make like a reduced red wine sauce, or you can take all the carrots and everything that's in here and put them in a blender, and then you can make a sauce out of that as well. And then you put it over mashed potatoes like you would do anything else too, like a pot roast or whichever. But it is a little bit different type of meat. I think the flavoring from short ribs is phenomenal. So what we're going to do is, before we lose the heat out of this, I'm going to shut this one off. We're just going to put foil. Just be careful, because obviously you're dealing with hot liquids and so on, so the pan is going to be hot. And you want to get a nice seal on it. So I usually do a couple pieces just to make sure that I don't have anything escaping. All right. So let's go ahead and put this in the oven. I'm at 350 degrees, and we're going to be at 350 degrees for about 2.5 hours. All right, so timer went off for these short ribs. Let's check them out and see how they came out. Look at that. Oh wow, that's tender. Let me get a plate here. Yeah, just falling apart when you pull it up. Let's see if these things came out tender or not. Falling right apart. Look at that. And like I said, you can take the vegetables afterwards, make like a little broth or something, like a little sauce with it. And you can take some of the broth from it as well and reduce it down in a saute pan, add a little bit of red wine, a little bit more red wine or some kind of starch content to thicken it up. But I think we did pretty good on this one. Now this thing's gonna be hot. Yeah, you taste everything. You taste the wine, you can taste the carrots, you can taste everything. And that's phenomenal. The thyme too, even the thyme. Just like whenever you eat or whenever you drink a wine or something like that and you like smell in at the same time that you're drinking the wine, it adds to that flavor content that you're going for. Yeah, definitely try this out. It's fun. Enjoy.